welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to my favorite horror movies per decade series for Halloween. Okay, so today we're going to be doing the 1900s, the 1910s, and the 1920s. Real quick, before I get started, I forgot to mention that because, in the last video, because the videos mentioned were old enough, same for this video by the way, they are old enough to have fallen in the public domain, so they will be linked down below for your viewing. Okay, so, quick intro done, let's get into it. So let's start with the 1900s. For this one, I have a quick honorable mention for VIY in 1909, directed by Vasily Goncharov. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, sorry. The reason I do honorable mention for this one, even though it's probably a really good one, there was a newer horror movie called VIY, I believe from the 90s or so. I haven't seen it yet, to be honest, but it looks really creepy, and I've heard, creepy things about it. Honorable mention because unfortunately this movie has been lost, or the 1909 version, so I can't really give it a review, but honorable mention for it having existed in the first place. Right? Getting started. The first one I have mentioned here is Turn of the Century Surgery from 1900, exactly that year, by Alice Guy Blaché. Okay, so this is a short film, literally, of a surgery being performed on a person. Again, because, the medical field was developing. It's kind of funny. It's not a real surgery, although I could totally see them filming a real surgery. I think that would have been maybe a little, I don't know, I think it would be interesting, right, to see a real surgery. This one is fictional. They're basically just, like, amputating a bunch of parts from this patient and then reattaching random limbs. It's kind of funny, but mostly horror. The next one we have here is The Infernal Cauldron from 1903 by Georges Melies. So this one is basically about a little green man who boils a woman and her spirits come to haunt him. Hold up, did I just say a little green man in 1903? That's impossible, right? Because color movie hasn't been invented yet. Well, here's the deal. Okay, I'm not tricking you, I promise. Pinky swear. Oh, pinky swear. Pinky swear it's from 1903 and it's a real one. So, okay, I can't remember specifically when colored movies were invented. Sorry, can't remember my classes, but okay, whatever. So, one technique that Georges Melies invented, again, I told you he was like the OG inventor, creator, artist, is to literally hand color on the videotape, or like the film. So he would hand color each little box with like a somewhat of a see-through ink, right? So that when it was projected, filmed in black and white, colored, projected, and the light went through in color, right? And so remember, that would be 25 frames per second. So you can imagine, I believe this one must have been, 2 or 3 minutes long. I can't remember specifically, but, that's still a lot. Or maybe it was a little bit more. So that, when I found out about that, it just kind of reminded me about Wallace and Gromit. Alright, so the last recommendation for the 1900s, first decade, is Satan's Play from 1907. Okay, by Segundo de Chomón. I'm not sure what country he's from, so maybe Spain, but I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. So this one is literally just Satan being bored in hell, so he goes to Earth to kind of terrorize people, or like have fun. This is literally like the OG Lucifer, basically. if you've seen Lucifer, the Netflix TV series, this is it. This was the first one. Look no further. Also, the version I linked for this one has kind of like, obviously it has newer music on it, so it makes it a little bit creepier even, but like, I don't know, I like to imagine what kind of musics would have been played at screenings of these movies, and I'm just like, I don't know, got a bunch of ideas running through my head, and I'm kind of liking it. Also, by the way, how do you like my little blanket fort? I thought it would be fun to do a blanket fort instead of just like wrapping myself in a blanket like I did yesterday, because it was getting kind of hot under there, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, going on to the 1910s. Okay, for this one, the first one I'm gonna recommend is, so this one was meant to be made in a movie. This is Dante's Inferno from 1911, directed by Giuseppe de Liguoro, Francesco Bertolini, Adolfo Padovan. It's a giant poem about hell from a long time ago. Italian ancient, oh my gosh. Italian anciency. You get what I'm saying? So, this one is special, okay, because first of all, it's the first Italian feature film and the first full standing feature film in the world. I think this one is around an hour long or so, if I remember correctly. The first long-standing feature film in the world, Dante's Inferno. You did it again. Next up, we have The Portrait from 1915, directed by Władysław Starowicz. I am so sorry for mispronouncing that if I did. Written and linked down below again. This one is inspired by Nikolai Gogol's novella of the same name. I believe it was a novella rather than a novel. Regardless, it's essentially the story of this guy who has a portrait in his house, and he becomes more like gradually obsessed with it and infatuated by it to where it becomes creepy. This one is more psychological thriller than horror, which I thought was fun because I tend to prefer psychological thrillers to horror, personally. So from 1914, last up, we have The Man with Wax Faces, directed by Henri Roussel, Emile Tramont, Henri Gouget. Basically, this one is about a friend who wants to scare his other friend who's like scared by nothing, and so he dares him to spend a night in this wax museum. So first of all, we have our first official wax museum horror movie from 1914. Check it out. And also, okay, I don't know what month this came out in from 1914, but like, is it just me, or does anyone else, every time I see something from a historically relevant year, I'm just like, oh, you don't know what's about to happen. So actually, it's interesting because I really like to see, this is kind of like a side note, I like to see how historical events like influence art. So you can kind of see with certain of the movies we're going to talk about later in this series were kind of like influenced by certain historical events, or like how the progression of movies kind of tells you what's going on through history. So I don't know if this movie was influenced by World War I or anything, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this movie came out after World War I had started or before? I also don't know how long movies would take to make back then. From like, you know, writing to production to completion. Stuff to think about. Okay, so let's get into the 1920s. Okay, last decade of the video, but I got some good ones for you. So the first one I'm going to mention was remade every single decade since history, basically, and that is from 1925, The Phantom of the Opera. Like, there are certain classics, okay, I'm just gonna say it, there are certain classics that I feel like have been remade basically more or less every single decade, and it's almost exhausting Just putting it out there. Anyway, but this one was the first. If you don't know The Phantom of the Opera, it was a French... Wait, hold on. Was it a novel or a play? No, I think it was a play, right? It was a play. And it basically follows this man who is super disfigured and, like, hiding from society. And he hides in this opera house in Paris. And one day he, like, not one day, but, like, eventually he sees this actress who works at, or plays at the opera house, and he falls in love with her, and he basically stalks her and, like, captures her. Pretty much. The OG stalker story. But it's a classic, and it's been remade every year. I believe there may even have, I'm sure there was a filming of this before 1925, but that's the first one that I found and that I thought was really good, and I really liked it. Next up, we have The Skeleton Dance, from 1929 and directed by Walt Disney. Okay, so, you know how I feel about Walt Disney? I don't like him. I don't give a crap about current Disney movies, but I'll give credit where credit is due. Walt Disney's a complicated story, okay? But this one I thought was fun. Also, one of the first, like, animated, if you will-ish movies. Kind of interesting. So for its historical relevancy, I had to include this one. Also, Disney movies. Another Disney movies that I will mention later in the series was responsible for me liking horror movies in the first place. Like, I think the first horror movie I saw was a Walt Disney movie. You'll have to stay tuned to find out which one. I'll let you know later. Oh my gosh. Clickbait! Sorry. And then the last one I have to mention. Okay, so this one is creepy, okay? So beware. This is like, talk about a slow burn, okay? This one is like a slow burn. And it's called Un Chien Andalou in French. From 1929 as well. In English, it's An Andalusian Dog. So this was directed in cooperation with Louis Buñuel and Salvador Dali. This one is a classic European, like, surrealist movie. Surrealist, I believe first of its kind. This came out as a response to World War I. So here we go. Earlier when I was like, yeah, I think this is one of those moments. I'm not gonna spoil it if you haven't seen it yet, but the reason I say it's a slow burn is kind of jokingly, but kind of not. Just watch it and let me know what you think later. And if you already know, oh my gosh, right? Okay, anyway. So those are my recommendations for the 1900s to the 1920s. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know how you feel about historical events influencing movies over time. I think that's a pretty fun thing to, like, see. And not just movies, art in general. I think I'm going to continue doing the blanket fort thing from now on. I'm kind of enjoying it. Maybe next time I need a snack. Okay, well, no one cares about my snacks right now. Anyway, like this video if you did, subscribe to my channel for the rest of the series and more, and I'll see you guys next time.